Good afternoon and welcome to Performance St. Paul's at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Key West, Florida. Welcome back to From the Organ. This continued series has changed a bit from a weekly offering with just me at the organ console to a once-a-month offering where I have invited other organists that, along with me, live in Key West and in the surrounding area. Today I would like to welcome John Penkoski, who is the organist at two of our local churches here in Key West, and who happens to be a dear friend as well. Also, we welcome Tom Bond, another dear friend who happens to be a member here at St. Paul's, and has participated at various times during the year when we invite organists around town to come and play. In fact, John, whenever invited to play, always says yes. I thank them both for their time and talents today. We have just celebrated two big holidays in the life of the Christian church. On the last Sunday of October, we celebrated Reformation Sunday, the time when Martin Luther, a priest in the Roman Catholic Church, hung the 95 Theses on the doors of All Saints Church in Wittenberg. And then just this past Sunday, we celebrated All Saints Sunday, when we remember those who have died throughout the past year. John will help us remember some of the great hymns of the holiest of holy days with his offerings at the organ. We will then invite Tom Bond to the console, where he will introduce us to Felix Mendelssohn as a master composer for the organ. Now let us sit back as I invite John to the organ console, followed by Tom.
Thank you, Tim, and it's nice to be back here at St. Paul's. Anytime I have a chance to play this wonderful instruments, I'm always very excited. As Tim just mentioned, we had All Saints Day and the Reformation the last few weeks, and so I will begin today's program with probably the national anthem of the Protestant Church would be A Mighty Fortress. And so I will introduce it with a hymn setting, and then I will do the Johann Pachelbel setting of the same melody. Johann Pachelbel is the same Pachelbel that wrote the famous Pachelbel canon that you hear at Christmas and at weddings. So the melody for Mighty Fortress, and then that tune by Pachelbel. along with the referendum scene, I would also like to play, obviously, a setting with Bach. Can't have Reformation without some Bach, so I will play his Fantasy in A. Lastly, I would like to play for All Saints Sunday last week, piece by Michael Bedford based on For All the Saints.
very happy to be here today. It's been a long time since I've played this organ until lately, so it's quite a treat. But also, I've been on the other side of the camera watching Tim's wonderful weekly programs for 26 incredible weeks. And so I'm very happy that, you know, he started this new format so that we still get to enjoy this wonderful instrument, because it's just a treasure, and with the virus we don't get to have things in person, so this is quite an experience. As Tim mentioned, I'm going to talk about or play music by Felix Mendelssohn, and I originally got interested in him when I found out how instrumental he was in basically reinvigorating the interest in the works of Johann Sebastian Bach. And so I started looking into his music, and then I learned some of it, and then I found out that while he was a really gifted composer, teacher, conductor, pianist, and organist, he really wrote very little music for the Kingdom Instruments, the pipe organ. And so I thought that was a little strange. I mean, he was born in Hamburg, Germany in 1809, and he only lived, fortunately, 38 years from pretty much a hereditary family issue that caused quite a few of them to die young. But he has always been one of the most celebrated figures of the early Romantic period. And so to his organ works, he really only wrote 3 preludes and fugues, and then a set of 6 sonatas, which he sort of only did because he was commissioned to do that by an English publisher. And the interesting thing about these 6 sonatas, because they're wonderful and people really enjoy them, but he never performed them himself in public, only maybe a couple of private showings, so I thought that was interesting. Anyway, what I'm going to play today, I'm going to start with his prelude in G, and then I'm going to follow that with the middle movement of his 4th sonata, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the rest. So for the remaining of what I'm going to play from Mendelssohn today is all from his Sixth Sonata, which was based on a Lutheran hymn, Our Father in Heaven, or Lord's Prayer. And there are 4 total movements in this sonata. I'm going to play the chorale from the first, and then I'm going to play the third and fourth movements, the fugue and the finale. And unlike many organ sonatas, the finale is a big, flourishing, full organ sound, at least at some point, especially at the end. Because of the subject of this sonata, it grows in the middle, and then it ends quite beautifully, but quietly and reverently. back to Tim.
Yet another setting of Ein Feste Burg. This one was set by Joel Rainey. Mr. Rainey, born in 1956, started playing the piano sometime between, as he says, learning to walk and learning to read. His love of gospel music began in a rural Baptist church in Alabama, and it continues to strongly influence his music. After completing his degree in choral conducting at the University of Northern Alabama, he earned his master's degree in piano performance from the Juilliard School in New York City. Mr. Rainey is well known for his compositions and arrangements and is sought after as a music clinician, choral conductor, and piano soloist. He is presently the minister of music at the First Baptist Church in Oak Park, Illinois. English poet Lesbia Scott, who lived from 1898 to 1986, composed a number of children's hymns which she sang to her own children as a young mother in her 20s. She wrote both the words and the tunes, and in 1929 published them in a collection, Everyday Hymns for Little Children, which she also illustrated. Each hymn was devised for a different occasion, and one of them, Saints' Day, found its way to the United States. It was quickly set to a new tune, Grand Isle, which was composed especially for it by retired Episcopal priest John H. Hopkins. Grand Isle was written in 1940 and named for the community on the island on the same name in Lake Champlain in Vermont, where Hopkins lived during his retirement. It was this setting that was used for the Episcopal hymnal in 1942 under the title of the first line, I Sing a Song of the Saints of God. It was to be removed for the upcoming 1982 hymnal. Word of this prompted a well-organized letter-writing campaign to keep it, and keep it they did. The hymn appears in many other hymnals, including the 1974 Book of Worship for the United States Forces, the United Methodist hymnal, the Presbyterian hymnal, and the NAACCC's hymnal for a pilgrim people, and many others. I was always curious about the verse that says something about the saints being a doctor or a queen, and so on, that are always mentioned through the hymn. One was a doctor, meaning St. Luke, companion to St. Paul, and one was a queen. That would be Margaret, Queen of Scotland, who was known for her discipline of prayer and fasting, and for her compassion for the poor. The shepherdess on the green, none other than Joan of Arc, the teenage French girl who had a series of visions of angels, who was called to lead French troops against the English in the Battle of Orleans. The one I found most fascinating was the saint who was slain by a fierce wild beast, Bishop Ignatius of Antioch, who looked forward to becoming a martyr by being fed to the lions. Hymn number 293 in our hymnal, we're going to sing 3 verses. If you notice Sarah Kinninger as a guest here, she has been so gracious to copy the words, expand her message, and you'll sing 3 verses with us. Another hymn that we love to sing on All Saints Sunday is For All the Saints. The tune that John played today, Sine Nomine, literally means without a name. An interesting choice, perhaps. Originally, for the first 30 years or so, the hymn was actually sung to the tune Sarum, sometimes called Barnby, written by Victorian composer Joseph Barnby. I'm going to play just a few measures of this so you can hear it. Maybe not quite so joyful that we sing today. Ralph Vaughan Williams composed a new hymn tune, and it was called Sine Nomine, that was used for the first time in publication of the English hymnal in 1906. It has been described as one of the finest hymn tunes of the 20th century. Although most English hymn tunes of its era are written for singing in SATB, 4-part harmony, Sine Nomine is primarily a unison, verses 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8, with organ accompaniment. And then the two verses in between, verses 5 and 6, are set in 4-part harmony. Charles Villiers Stanford's tune Engelberg was also written to be partnered with this hymn, although in the wake of Sine Nomine it was never gained the popularity and is now composed and sung with other hymns. Namely, we know that Christ is raised and dies no more. But let us sing 3 verses of this well-known hymn. Again, Sarah has the verses for us. The final hymn for today is number 388, O Worship the King. Robert Grant wrote these words in the early 18th century, and William Croft set the text to this hymn tune named Hanover. Croft was born at the Manor House, Nether, Eddington, Warwickshire. He was educated at Chapel Royal and remained there until 1698. He became organist of St. Anne's Church, Soho, and became an organist and gentleman extraordinary at the Chapel Royal. He shared that position with his friend Jeremiah Clark. Mr. Clark has been credited with composing the most famous trumpet tune that is still widely used at weddings. In 1708, Croft became the organist at Westminster Abbey, following the suicide death of his dear friend Jeremiah Clark, who had been the organist there. Croft wrote many works and music for the funeral of Queen Anne in 1714 and for the coronation of King George, 1715. One of Croft's most enduring pieces is the hymn tune St. Anne, written to the poem O God Our Help in Ages Past by Isaac Watts. Perhaps Croft's most notable musical legacy is the suite of funeral sentences which have been described as a glorious work of near genius. First published as part of the burial service in Musica Sacra, the date and purpose of their compositions is uncertain. The 7 sentences themselves are from the Book of Common Prayer and are verses from various books of the Bible, intended to be said or sung during an Anglican funeral. One of the sentences, Thou knowest, Lord, the secrets of our hearts, was actually composed by Henry Purcell, part of his 1695 music for the funeral of Queen Mary. Croft wrote, There is one verse composed by my predecessor, the most famous Mr. Henry Purcell, to which, in justice to his memory, his name is applied. The reason why I did not compose that verse anew, so as to render the whole service entirely of my own composition, is obvious to every artist. In the rest of that service composed by me, I have endeavored as near as I could to imitate that great master and celebrated composer, whose name will forever stand high in the rank of those who have labored to improve the English style. End quote. Croft's funeral sentences were sung at George Frederick Handel's funeral in 1759 and have been included in every British state funeral since their publication. Most recently, Diana, Princess of Wales in 1997, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother in 2002, and Baroness Thatcher in 2012. I will first play a chorale prelude of this tune set by Dan Forrest. Then we will sing the 3 stanzas. I again want to thank John Penkoski and Tom Bond for joining me here today, and Sarah with us online for showing us the texts. I am so thankful that we share this little island together, and I'm so glad they so eagerly agreed to be here today. I also want to thank you. Music does lift us as musicians when we play, but we all feel truly called and feel grateful that you are here listening to us. Until next month, be safe. Have a blessed Thanksgiving. Be safe with Ada on the way toward us. And as always, Soli Deo Gloria.